welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 188 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 44 of A Storm of Swords, that's Jaime 6.
And as we always try to do, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, and hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. Be particularly convenient if you're not reading along.
It will.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. It's the first day of the NFL draft, which starts in 55 minutes, so we're going to need to move this along.
Okay.
I'm doing fine. How about you? How you doing?
I don't know how the NFL draft works exactly, but I can't imagine that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be in the first few minutes of the NFL draft.
No. If we run our normal length, I'll probably have only missed 3 picks. So
Okay.
it would not be a big deal. I was just joking. You know, I had a dentist appointment today, and I thought of you because you have so many dentist appointment stories. And I thought, do I have any kind of compulsion to want to reach out and hold the hand?
Hold hands?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I didn't have any compulsion to do so.
And let me be clear, it is only in the dentist chair. It's not like on an airplane.
There might be moments when you want to reach out and hold someone's hand.
Now I said that, I've realised that that's not true either. So it is fear. Fear makes me want to hold hands with the nearest person.
Right. So I started watching a new show. It's new to me. It's actually about 23 or 4 years old. I needed the new lunchtime show. And so I started watching Freaks and Geeks from, I think it only ran one season. It was like 18 episodes in 99, 2000. Have you ever heard or possibly seen it?
I've never watched the whole thing, but it had a lot of people who went on to be very funny.
Yes.
Because they're children, practically, in this show.
Right.
Actually.
I knew nothing about it, other than I had heard that it kind of it was kind of a cult classic. You know, It's a Judd Apatow produced or directed or whatever.
Was
show.
it? So it must have been early in his career, too.
Yeah, so it ran in 99, 2000. It takes place, like the scene of the show is around 1980. And it's just about high school kids and trying to fit in, and the popular kids treat the less popular kids poorly, and they call them mean names, and it's a lot of it is like, oh gosh, this is terrible. It's very cringy the way that some of these smaller kids are treated, but it just overall, I've only 4 episodes in, and I know you don't always like to take my recommendations on things.
I've had this one recommended by people whose taste I trust, Mackelly. So
okay, fine. It's a lot of fun.
I'm not going to boycott it just because it's coming from you this time.
Now that you've heard it coming from me, you're like, oh, forget it. Whoever that was that recommended it. Linda Cardellini, I think her name is kind of the lead, and then Marshall from How I Met Your Mother.
Jason Segel.
Yeah, that's him. He's in it, and James Franco is in it. Yeah. Busy Phillips is in it. The one who played Karen on The Office, Jones, Rashida Jones is in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
A lot of really known actors.
Well, I'll give that a try one of these days, and I'll report back. So Carson and I are upon the recommendation of my little sister, who from this point forward will be added to the list of people whose recommendations I no longer listen to.
Her and me.
You're on the dubious list, let's put it that way. But we're watching a show on Netflix called The Night Agent.
I do not know it.
Oh, it's very poor. It's very poor. It's strange. It is a strange mix of, it looks okay. I mean, the production values are okay, but it's kind of like Netflix becoming a network channel.
Oh, yeah.
They've had the world at their feet, and they've been able to do whatever they want. And now you just get the feeling they're cutting corners to appeal to the most people now.
Right.
And this show, They were all good looking. It's always a clue. It's always a
Right.
clue. If
Right.
the still shot is a bunch of good looking people, that show is probably going to stink. It's my rule of thumb, and it hasn't let me
You're
down.
right. There's probably something to that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. They're all good looking. And occasionally, I will say, these actors, they're all kind of unknownish. They they have pulled some scenes out of the bag where I have been listening to the dialogue and I've been like, oh, that is awful dialogue. And they've actually managed to act it into being not quite so bad. But
Okay. Yeah.
the script is horrible. And
So
a lot of the acting is
oh,
terrible
okay.
too.
So yeah,
It's
it's
not
not just
no.
everything but
It's not
the acting
great
included,
acting.
right?
It's saving the game acting. I mean, we've stopped watching it several times
And
now.
keep
We're
picking
only at
it back
episode
up though.
6. Hmm?
You keep picking it back up though.
Yeah, well, it's not a terrible plot. It's an interesting plot, but
Okay.
but occasionally we can't keep thinking they're just adding another stupid layer to this plot to make it seem interesting, but it's not actually holding
Right.
together at all. And I have a feeling that the whole payoff is going to be extremely disappointing
Okay.
from an already low point. So there you go. That's
Well,
my analysis of this
all
half-watched
right.
show.
I don't think I'm going to start it. I have to say.
You know, Cos and I once went to see a movie because we heard it was so bad it was good. Um, yeah, we did.
Did it live up to the hype?
Only half of it.
Oh, so half of it was so bad it was bad. The other half was so
It's
bad it was
it
good.
was terrible. We got no enjoyment from watching it. It was called A Walk to Remember. It had Mandy Moore in it.
I remember when it came out. It was not a
Oh,
movie to remember, clearly.
oh, oh! I still haven't forgotten it. But of course, that is Citizen Kane compared to the Madonna movie. I've told you before about the Madonna movie. Swept Away.
Oh, I never saw that one either.
Oh, that you've got to see because that is a terrible film.
That's so
That
bad
is
it's good? Or
oh,
so
I mean,
bad you gotta watch it just because of how bad it is.
yeah, really more that. I mean, you can't actually get any enjoyment from it, but man, it'll redefine your movie scale, that's for sure. All those one-star movies I've got, suddenly they get 3 stars because this thing is a whole new level.
Is that the one that was directed by her husband at the time?
Bingo. So
Okay.
clearly there was kind of like an echo chamber of husband and wife
Right.
working together, and neither of them could say this is not a good idea to the other one, and so we ended up with something. Oh,
And
it
I
was
guess uh, maybe that explains why their marriage didn't last if neither one could tell the other one this is not a good idea. I guarantee you, if Stacy and I were making a movie together, there'd be plenty of times when she would say, "That's not a good idea."
mm. Again, given your recommendations, I think some of the time she's going to be right, Mackelly. You've got to listen to her on some of this. Not all necessarily.
I feel like I'm the one that finds most of our good shows that we enjoy. She probably disagree with that. Luckily, she
Uh-huh,
doesn't listen to the show, so I
uh-huh.
can say that all I want.
um, I will say I went for a drink after work yesterday, and I'm not going to reveal my age. I probably have done a couple of times on the show, but I'm not going to reveal my age. But let me put it this way: I recently graduated from one age group of soccer to the next age group of soccer. Yes.
Right, right,
But
right.
I'm still friends with my former team. And there was a soccer match on TV. That's why we gathered in the bar.
You're just too
And
elderly to play with them, is all.
oh, I'm borderline. I probably could have stayed until I overstayed my welcome. I left when they were still sorry to see me leave. Let's put it that way.
Right, there you go.
Yeah,
That's how you want to do it, right?
exactly. Yeah, leave them hungry. So the captain, who's recently left our company, no longer works there. He came to the bar, and as I hadn't seen him for a long time, it was nice to see him. And he said, "Oh, hey, are you available on Saturday? We're short of numbers." And the goalkeeper for the team was sitting to my left, and he said, "Are we that short of numbers?" I think
Couldn't
he
you have
did.
said that to him after the fact? You have to say it while I'm sitting here?
I'm right here.
We can't be that desperate.
That is, I think he just meant he thought they had 14 or 15 we didn't need subs from outside, but
Right. It didn't
it
come
sure
across that
sounded
way.
like a slam to me. All right, let's get down to business. How did we leave Jaime Lannister? Last we saw of Jaime, he and Brienne were being hosted by Roose Bolton in Harrenhal. They shared a steamy bath, Jaime and Brienne, I should say, where Jaime finally revealed the true extent of the horrors that King Aerys would have unleashed, but for Jaime's, uh, oath-breaking intervention. Bolton said that Arya had been found, but unless the Hound is working for Roose Bolton, which seems seriously unlikely, Bolton was either mistaken or lying. Roose is trying to get out of the mess caused by Jaime's maiming. His convoluted plan involves giving Harrenhal to Vargo Hoat, sending Jaime to King's Landing with only kind words about Roose, thus leaving Hoat exposed to Tywin's wrath. To appease Vargo, Vargo, will be allowed to keep the other prisoner, Brienne. Why don't we give the summary of this one?
Okay. And before we do, I once again have to give credit to the author of the summary.
That's right. 2 in a row.
That's right. This one as well was crafted by none other than Jenny of Oldstones. So thank you very much, Jenny. It's a very good summary. I've read it through.
For the second time in 2 weeks, I've did a round of applause when you said that, only to realize that my microphone is so clever it ignores clapping.
We have the same microphone, and mine doesn't
Right?
do that. So
I
you have a
promise
special
you.
feature.
Right. Okay, you watch. Right, we're at the 23:45 point now. Right, I'm going to clap.
Yeah. Okay.
You see if that comes up.
All right.
It's not there.
23:45. I'll keep an eye on it.
You'll see.
Jaime's fever lingers, but he's no longer in danger of losing his arm. He's anxious to be gone and put everything behind him, including Brienne of Tarth. He's being escorted to King's Landing by Stillshanks Walton and 200 men, along with Qyburn, who will look after him on the journey. Several brave companions are there to see them off, and Jaime promises to return. A Lannister always pays his debts. Roose Bolton is departing Harrenhal at the same time, and before the pair separate, Roose asks Jaime to give Lord Tywin his regards. Jaime says he will, as long as Roose does the same with Robb Stark. Roose says he will.
Qyburn checks on how Jaime is doing, and Jaime learns it was Qyburn, who sent Pia to Jaime's bed last night. Jaime was tempted, but reluctantly turned her away. Qyburn also mentions that Lord Selwyn of Tarth offered 300 gold dragons for the safe return of his daughter, but Vargo Hoat is holding out for sapphires. I said it. Was it? Fucking
Yes.
Sapphires. Jaime wonders whether or not his father has received his severed hand yet, and how his father will react.
Jaime calls to mind the story of unruly House Tarbeck and his father's wish to teach the Tarbecks a bloody lesson, but his grandfather, Lord Titus, chose a more forgiving route instead. Jaime recognizes some of the landmarks they're passing. He recalls the ceremony when he joined the Kingsguard and King Aerys' real motive for accepting him. At camp that evening, Jaime drinks dream wine. He dreams he's whole again, but Tywin, Cersei, and really all of the Lannister ancestors abandon him and Brienne in the dark bowels of Casterly Rock. He faces the shades of his Kingsguard brothers and Rhaegar Targaryen before he awakens.
Jaime makes the sudden decision to return to Harrenhal to rescue Brienne. Jaime threatens to implicate Walton in the loss of his hand when the man balks, so he ultimately agrees. Upon their arrival at Harrenhal, Jaime hears cheers and realizes Brienne is in the bear pit. She is unarmored and holding only a tourney sword, much to the amusement of the brave companions. This is her punishment for biting Vargo Hoat's ear off.
When Jaime offers to ransom her, Vargo tells him, "Go get her." So he does. He jumps into the pit. Jaime orders an astonished Brienne to get behind him and distracts the bear until Walton's men are forced to intervene and kill the bear. The brave companions are angered, but Walton's men have them outnumbered 2-1.
Vargo decides under threat that he will be merciful, and Brienne and Jaime are pulled out of the bear pit. Upon resuming their journey, Brienne asks Jaime what made him come back. After mulling over several cruel quips, he says simply, "I dreamed of you."
And of Jeannie. Nope. Well, thank you, Jenny. That was well done and very much appreciated.
No, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. It's always great to have contributions from without.
Yep, and I think she does enjoy them. I think she and Genevieve, who is another contributor to the summaries, they do enjoy them. So that's the whole point. It was supposed to be something fun for
It's not
our
supposed to be work.
right. It's supposed to be fun getting involved in the show. So this is Jaime's 6, which is kind of a lot of POVs so far. We're just barely halfway through the book
Yeah,
for
he's
a
had a
first time
few.
POV.
Yeah. So it's mostly been him, Arya, and Catelyn. Are they the
Yeah,
sort
I
of top
think
dogs?
Kat's around 5, and
Yeah.
Arya's ahead. She's like at 8 or so,
Yeah.
and Jaime's at 6. So yeah, he's got a lot more than Dany does.
It's funny that Arya's had so many, given how sort of like how much of it has been bouncing around in the
Right.
same region. Yeah.
That's true. For someone who hasn't made much progress, she's had an
Yeah.
awful lot of chapters. So, Steelshanks Walton features heavily in this chapter, and so I just kind of wanted to remind everyone who he was, just so we have a little context behind him. He's been around a while. He's basically been around as long as Roose has been at Harrenhal. So, in Arya 10, which is the last of her Clash of Kings chapters, he was part of the group that was executing Harrenhal servants who aided the Lannisters. But many of those, unfortunately, were servants who served under Shella Went prior to the Lannisters' arrival. So they were just doing what they were being forced to
Right.
do, but yet
I
they were.
remember us complaining about that at the time, that it was,
Yes,
yeah,
right. And
deeply unfair.
it upsets Arya when she sees it happening, and also when they're on the run, she and Hot Pie and Gendry, she thinks that Roose might send Steelshanks Walton to track them down. So he's been around a
Oh,
bit.
yeah. Yeah, so he's obviously one of the more trusted, not
Right.
necessarily nice, but obviously feared as well.
Yeah, Jaime had a good way of putting it when he thinks that he's served with people like Steelshanks Walton his whole life, that, they're basically small folk who, when they're in war, will do the killing and the terrible things that they're asked to do by their lords and commanders. And then when the war's over, they'll go back to their little villages, they'll marry their neighbors' daughters and have a bunch of kids and put down their spears for shovels or
Turn-
whatever.
Turned their swords into plowshares.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Jamie would know. I mean, to me, it sounds like the alternative view might be he's the kind of person who would go back and be a deeply troubled individual,
Oh,
who's executed small folk at the whim of his master and
right.
now can't live a normal life after doing things like that. But hey, Jamie's got more experience than I have.
You could definitely see that being another way that it could go
Yeah.
for small folk who are forced into these things and really don't have control over what happens.
Yeah. So, last chapter we got some prophecies from the ghost on of High Heart.
Yeah.
One of which I remember was about a goat in the something big empty throne room being bothered
you
by a dog. Do
you nailed
tell.
it. That's exactly what she said, word for word. She said, "In the Hall of Kings, the goat sits alone and fevered, while the great dog descends upon him."
Oh,
So,
nine tenths of what I said.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So let's check in on this. So we've got Roose leaving Harrenhal and leaving it in the control of Vargo Hoat. So,
Known as
if
the goat, right?
yes, known as the goat, exactly. And if Harrenhal is the Hall of Kings, and we wouldn't have named the show after it if it wasn't.
I mean, we're we're serious business. We are.
Right. So Hoat is sitting there alone. Now he doesn't necessarily seem to be fevered, but he at the end of the chapter he was in pretty rough shape after messing with Brienne and losing his left ear when
That's
she
true.
bit it off. So maybe that will become infected and it will lead to him being fevered or so.
That's true. But who's the great dog? That was the bit we still didn't know last week.
We
Yeah.
yes, we still don't, unless it was the bear. Maybe she was seeing a bear and thought it was a
Oh,
great dog.
right. Big dog. Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. So Jamie, when Jamie's leaving for the first time, he tells the brave companions that he'll be back, which prophecy-wise was right on. The very next day, there he was. But
Everyone's got prophecies.
but I think he was thinking more long term than that. That he was
Yes, I think so.
the Lannisters paying their debts, the brave companions were going to get theirs, and I
Yes.
think that's a more long term strategy that he has in mind.
Yeah, I wonder if when he left again, if he said, I'll be back
I'll be
again.
this wasn't the back I meant.
When I said I'll be back, it wasn't this one. Yeah, if I were members of the Brave Companions, it would make me a little uneasy because he's headed to King's Landing and seems pretty likely to get there at this point. He's got a host of 200
Yeah,
surrounding
I mean,
him.
as long as he keeps going in the one direction, stop.
Right.
Oh, my toothbrush.
And he is the son of the hand of the king and, well, as far as the rest of the realm knows, the uncle of the king.
Yeah.
So, and he's been planning this revenge for a while. When he was paraded into Harrenhal, remember, he thought he was going to survive and make it to King's Landing, and then he was going to pay these brave companions back with interest. So,
Yeah. Um, I wonder. I mean, we've talked before about sellsword groups and how they turn tail and run away. I wonder if that might be an option here. Get out of Westeros. Go
really,
see what Essos has to offer for the next 20 years.
Roose says he mentioned to Brienne and Jaime at dinner that Vargo is a smart man, despite it all. He's a smart man. You couldn't be a smart man and lead a group like the Brave
Yeah,
Companions.
yeah.
If he is a smart man, wouldn't he take a look at his surroundings and think, I better get out of here fast. I
Yes.
have managed to anger the most powerful man in the realm, whose grandson happens to be the king. And what am I getting out of it?
Yeah.
It might be
I
time to
mean,
cut his losses and go.
he's tried various things. I mean, he's still hoping to marry Rickard Karstark's daughter and things like that, but none of it's going to come to fruition. It just doesn't
Right,
feel like it. And if the tide is turning the Lannisters' way in the overall war, then
right.
when that tide hits Harrenhal, then there will be no mercy for the brave companions.
He'll be fevered and alone,
Oh,
possibly,
yes, he will. Yes, he will.
or dead.
So why would Roose Bolton be so keen to send his regards to Tywin? I mean, I
Uh
can
huh.
understand it on a sort of like just send my regards to your father, but it seemed to make a point of this. Um, is he afraid of that same revenge reaching him? That he
Right.
might be somewhat, I mean, he is somewhat culpable for Jaime's maiming, but obviously when he saw it, he was furious about it. He was not, he didn't order it. Um,
Right. Right.
you would expect Jaime to tell his father that it was Vargo Hoat. Is there more to it than that? Is he selling out the North in some way? I mean, obviously, there's a betrayal of the North here in that he's giving Jaime back to Tywin, but hey, that betrayal is only the same as Catelyn's, so
Right.
you can cover yourself in that. Uh, but then that makes me wonder, is he possibly in cahoots with his monstrous offspring?
We've discussed it when Ramsay was doing some of the things. We wondered whether he was acting alone or acting possibly under.
But in my mind at the time, I was like, he's just a loose cannon. There's no way
Right.
Roose would. But now, as we're learning more about Roose, it feels like he really might. And if he were to turn the tables on Robb Stark and somehow betray him to Robb, to the extinction of the Starks, then the Boltons would be in prime position to take the whole North
Yeah.
if they were in cahoots with the Lannisters.
Right. Yeah.
Oh dear.
That's a lot to read into from. Oh, send my regards to your father.
But I'm
Yeah.
piecing in the same way Vargo Hoat could say, "I've still got hope." If you piece together all the things that are falling into place here, it's not looking so great. You're right. All he said was send my regards to your father. who is ostensibly the person you're at war with.
Right. Yeah, and he could, Jaime's response was, "Yeah, send my regards to Robb Stark." It could have just been. It's very possible that, like the first thing you said, that Roose was saying, "Send your regards to my father," so that he's not angry at me for what
Right.
Vargo Hoat
Yeah.
did to you. Because remember, I didn't have anything to do with it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
at that dinner, he was saying how things have been complicated now because Vargo Hoat is his man, just like he is Robb's man, and therefore what Vargo Hoat does reflects on Roose Bolton. So he might still be just really trying to butter Jaime up. Like,
Yeah.
please don't put this on me.
But then thinking about that, actually, he's also opening the door to a a divergence of opinion between him and Robb Stark with that.
Uh-huh. This is
If you say
they're at war.
Vargo Hoat is my man in the same way that I'm Robb Stark's man, Vargo Hoat did something that I did not want him to do. Is he saying I'm also doing something that Robb Stark would not want me to do?
Oh, could be. He certainly released Jaime, which he was under strict instructions not to
Mm-hmm.
do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Aside from Kat. And when Brienne brought up the fact that she was under orders from Kat, he said, "Well, I take my orders from the king."
Right.
So,
But the other part about that is in the same way that Vargo Hoat can never hope that the story of his maiming Jaime isn't going to reach Tywin's ears, Robb Stark can't spend any period of time with, sorry, Roose Bolton can't spend any period of time with Robb Stark without it coming out that he had an opportunity to bring Jaime back and didn't take it.
yeah, that is something I've wondered as well. When they meet up,
Yeah,
Roose left Harrenhal to make his way to the twins for the wedding. What
right.
happens when he and Robb sit down and Robb says, "Okay, give me a debriefing. What have you been up to?"
Right. We caught a guy who looked a lot like Jaime Lannister. But this guy only had one hand.
He only had one hand. It couldn't be him. Last you saw Jaime, how many hands did he have? Was it
Yeah.
two? Because
Different guy for sure. On that subject, actually, what the book really needs is a point of view character somewhere between the wall and the net. I was thinking
yeah,
about that. John was headed in that direction, but then I think John was headed back to Castle Black after escaping from the wildlings.
right.
So we still got that big gap between the two where we just don't know. I mean, I guess Bran is in there somewhere, but he's
He's heading
not
toward the wall
reporting on
too.
very much. Yeah, I'd really
Yeah.
like to know what's going on with Ramsay Snow.
Yeah, we had Theon in that spot, but Theon's
Yeah,
gone cold. We don't know
yeah,
what's up with him. So we don't even know if
yeah,
he's still alive, really.
yeah. So we learned more about Jaime's investiture as a Kingsguard by Aerys and how it was. Well, we've known for a while that there were sort of like conflicting reasons that he was given the white cloak. One of which was he was extremely talented as a fighter. One of which was because he and Cersei were trying to manipulate things so that he could be with her.
Right. Good memory. I'm impressed.
But one of it was that Aerys wanted to antagonize his now, uh, well, not enemy yet, but he was annoyed with Tywin Lannister and wanted to peeve him by
Right.
robbing him of his heir.
Yeah, yeah. And we learned things about the actual day too, about the day that, he was inducted into the Kingsguard. He told us before in the two Jaime chapters ago, I guess it was, that he was 15 years old. He felt like nobody could beat him in the lists, but he didn't get to compete. And he said, "Ares never let me joust. He sent me away, and now I'm coming back," because that was when the Brave Companions were taking him back to Harrenhal. And now we get more insight into what transpired and the emotions, thoughts, and reasonings behind it all. And like you said, he believes that he wasn't chosen as a Kingsguard for his fighting prowess and distinguishing himself against the Kingswood Brotherhood, but it was purely political, and not just that, but purely spiteful on Ares'
Right,
behalf.
right.
And it seemed pretty clear that Ares, according to Jaime's POV, which is what we're going off of here, that Aerys wanted to strip Tywin of his firstborn son and heir. And then, once he'd done that, then make sure that heir doesn't gain any glory by winning this tournament.
Right.
The line that Jaime remembers the king saying is, he'll win no glory here. He's mine now, not Tywin's.
Right.
So.
Yeah. It's interesting because the Kingsguard are glorified bodyguards, but
Right.
he's immediately sent to bodyguard duty. That's what he's sent to do. He's sent back to King's Landing to look after
Rhaella.
Elia?
Well, no, Elia was there. It was Rhaella, Queen Rhaella, and Viserys.
Oh, right. Yes. I was thinking it was wife and children of Rhaegar, but it was of Aerys. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jaime was so disillusioned, he thought to himself he'd rip his cloak off right now and can the whole thing, except for he took a lifelong vow in front of half the realm, and I have a hunch maybe Aerys planned it that way because it's both the spectacle of seeing Tywin lose his heir and making sure that Jaime couldn't back out without facing ridicule and ruining his reputation, which he eventually did anyway. But
do we know if all the Kingsguard were present?
All but him were present. I'm
So they were
pretty
all
sure.
there for his investiture. So at that moment, all the Kingsguard were present in one place. So during that time, Rhaella and Viserys were unguarded in King's Landing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
If I'd known that. So.
I don't know for a fact. I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure they were all there.
Yeah. Which again just goes to the insult of it, because he was perfectly happy for them to not be guarded until he could send Jaime Lannister to go and guard them and waste his time. Yeah.
And Gerald Hightower, the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, offered to do it in Jaime's place so Jaime could compete in the tournament, and that's when Aerys says, "Nope, he's mine now. He's not going to win any glory here."
So Jaime got a nighttime visitor the night before he left Harrenhal, not the night on the road, who was a lady called Pia, who I believe we met before, but I'm going to let you fill us in on, remind me who Pia was. But we learn as they travel that Qyburn was the one who sent Pia. But Jaime, I have a theory here, keeping his powder dry for his return to King's Landing, refuses Pia's advances and does not do anything with her.
Sure, I will. I will refresh your memory on what Pia, what we've seen of Pia so far. She's been
Pretty
around.
Much all of her, I think.
Yes, really. If you spend any time around Harrenhal lately, she's been around since Arya got to Harrenhal. She was actually a Harrenhal servant before the war broke out. She was
that's right.
a Went servant. But even from the very beginnings of them getting there were mentions of her sleeping with many of the Lannister knights and then the brave companions when they took over. And when Arya went to the buttery for hot pies, weasel soup ingredients that he needed, he found her there with the brave companion in action.
In flagrante.
Yes. And after Roose Bolton took over, she was one of the women that were stripped and shaved and put in the stocks for sleeping with Lannisters and there for any man's use. So terrible, very terrible stuff. But, as you were saying, Jaime, tossed her out of his bed. The reasons he gave was that he only had eyes for Cersei.
That's what I meant.
Qyburn referred to sending Pia, which have we been going with? I forget.
We're going with Pia this time.
Okay, Pia to Jaime for a little exercise. Yeah. He referred to it as. But several times in his POV, he's referred to only having desire and interest in Cersei. and we've talked before in King's Landing chapters about how we know Cersei hasn't stayed true to him. And like you just said a little bit ago, is a good shot he's going to make it back to King's Landing.
It seems so now, yes.
And we also know that Tyrion knows of some of Cersei's affairs. He knows of Lancel for sure.
Yeah.
And Varys strongly suggested the use of sexual favors to control the Kettle Blacks.
Kettle Blacks, yeah.
So, might Tyrion possibly tell Jaime what he suspects her to have been up to?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and think that Jaime doesn't mind. And the
Yeah.
reason being is that if he were to sleep with Pia, it would be out of lust, desire. Yeah? He
Right.
knows that Cersei is sleeping with these guys for entirely different reasons.
Mhm.
She's manipulating them. She's getting something out of them. She's not doing it because she wants to.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I
so,
definitely agree with all that.
yeah,
She's
he can turn a blind eye to it because he sees it for her machinations rather than a
possibly.
betrayal of him.
Possibly. Yeah, I could see that. Of
But
course.
if I were Tyrion, I would certainly try to hold it over Cersei.
Oh, right. Right.
Nevertheless,
Yes. Because if he tells Jaime about Cersei's affairs, yes, it very well might hurt Cersei, but it also might hurt Jaime if he's upset by it, and he loves his big brother.
the trickier one is Lancel because Lancel looks a bit like Jaime, and
Uh-huh.
that might feel like a betrayal.
Right. And
Right. You know, I was still alive. I know he looks a bit like me, but
and yeah, so I just wondered, might Tyrion use this to get
yeah,
at Cersei, which he's been trying to do, and she's been had the upper hand lately. And
yeah.
one thing I'll mention is that Jaime thinks that Qyburn has a kind of a fatherly essence about him. His fatherly face is crinkly with concern was one of the lines he uses when speaking about Qyburn. And he has looked after Jaime, and he treats him tenderly and in a concerned manner. However, there's something more to Qyburn. Obviously, he's been excommunicated from the Citadel. That's certainly something. Although, who knows? We don't know yet. Could possibly have been a political thing, and he was unfairly ousted, possibly. But there's just other things, like riding with the brave companions in general is a pretty red flag there. Unless it's being forced, they maybe needed a maester and said, you're going to be our maester, whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
But he aids the group in horrible crimes against humanity, so regardless, it's hard to morally justify that. But the thing in this chapter was the casual way he brought up examining women for rape, which was just,
yeah.
There's
Jenny spared us some of that in the
yes,
retelling, but yes, that stuck with me too.
there's just no moral way around that one. There's just nothing you can do about that. And if we dig a little deeper into who he is and why he is no longer a maester, Jaime asks him after Jaime wakes up from his dream whether Qyburn believes in ghosts or not. And ultimately, Qyburn says he does at some level, which was a very un-Lewin-like thought. And he even admits most of the Archmaesters didn't like his thought on, the afterlife, I guess. And that explains a bit why, maybe he wasn't seen in the best light by maesters, by the Archmaesters. And might that have something to do with why he lost his chain? I don't know. We'll have to see. The description says that the maester's face grew strange when Jaime asked him about the ghosts. And I wondered if possibly Jaime hit a nerve there.
Right.
Could also have been the fact that he called him maester, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not a maester anymore." But there's nothing else to go on about why he's lost his maester's chain. But I felt like that line, "the maester's face grew strange," in the conversation in general was in there for some reason. So I was just
Yeah.
trying to extrapolate it a bit.
So Qyburn also reveals that Selwyn Tarth, Brienne's father, has offered 300 gold dragons for her return. The story of the Sapphires, or the Sapphires, has kept Brienne safe for now, but now it's backfired because
Yeah,
Selwyn Tarth is not wealthy and cannot afford a mine full of sapphires. He can afford 300 gold dragons.
right.
Or probably he can afford 250 gold dragons, and he's dug for 300 to try and get his daughter back. But
Sure,
they're not
sure.
accepting that because they think he's wealthy, and so now that whole story has come back to hurt her, whereas it's kept her safe to this point.
Yeah, it was a noble gesture. Held
Yeah,
off awfulness for Brienne for a
yeah.
while when it otherwise wouldn't have.
And I do wonder
And
if this is partly why she crept into his dreams because of this,
uh-huh, right.
because he felt a
When Roose
responsibility.
announced that he was giving her back to Vargo Hoat, the end result was inevitable because he was going to try and ransom her for sapphires and they weren't going to be produced. So,
Yeah, but 300 gold dragons might get you a ship to Essos, which,
right.
again, referring back to previous conversation.
And Jaime tries to convince himself that he shouldn't care. He thinks to himself, Brienne's tough enough to survive a few rapes. And I obviously we see as the chapter unfolds that he couldn't convince himself of that.
Jamie also wonders how his father's going to feel about having having a dwarf and a cripple for sons. Um, I we don't know Tywin as well as we'd like to. Well, maybe we know Tywin better than we'd like to. One of those two things. But I can hazard a guess. He's not going to be best pleased, and he's not going to be terribly sympathetic to the victims, Jamie and Tyrion. He's going to blame them.
That's possible.
He
Yeah, that's
blames Tyrion
possible.
for being a dwarf. He's
Right.
going to blame Jamie for being maimed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's yes, he does. And he also blames Tyrion for killing his wife Joanna. Again,
Probably will
something
not blame
else.
Jamie for that because
Right. But it just goes more
definitely separate
evidence.
events. Yeah.
Yes, just more evidence that he will blame people for things that they did not have any control over. Uh, yeah, so you can understand Jaime's concern. Tywin is definitely hard and calculating, and he's certainly shown nothing but open disdain toward Tyrion. So I don't think he will have the level of disdain for Jaime that he
No,
does toward Tyrion,
because
but
it's not congenital. He can't pass on a lack of a hand to his
oh,
children,
right.
but the dwarfism maybe could be passed on.
Yeah.
So
And I think there's more going on with Tyrion than just the shape of his body. I mean, like I mentioned, he still holds a grudge for killing Joanna. And the fact that Tyrion frequents brothels is a source of frustration and embarrassment for Tyrion. And Cersei's certainly not helping. Her hatred of Tyrion surely has colored Tywin's perspective. She lies and stretches the truth about Tyrion to her father.
well, given how antagonistic Tywin is generally to the people around him, it's probably helping Tyrion on some levels that Cersei hates him so much because probably he defends him or looks after him just to keep Cersei annoyed. I'm not joking. That's
Right,
how
it's
I view
possible.
Tywin.
Yeah. He likes to keep everybody uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So thinking about his loss of his hand and kind of his father's lack of sentimentality, it reminds him of Jaime's grandfather, Tywin's father, Titus Lannister, when Titus was dealing with Lord and Lady Tarbeck. And Tywin's suggestion to the whole thing was send Lord Tarbeck back in two pieces. But we'll give you a quick rundown of what happened because Jenny probably didn't want to throw all this detail into the summary, which I agree with. But so Lord Titus imprisoned Lord Tarbeck for being unruly, and in return, Lady Tarbeck took 3 Lannisters captive, including Stafford Lannister. She threatened an eye for an eye if any harm came to her husband, and that's when Tywin suggested that his father send Lord Tarbeck back in two pieces, but instead Titus agreed to the trade, Tarbeck for Lannisters.
Okay.
So,
Do we know if anything happened to the Tarbecks after Titus died?
oh yeah. So here's a few things of note from that story. One, Titus clearly seems to be a softie. I
Well,
think
not necessarily a
possibly.
softie, but if your family is captive, you might exchange prisoners.
Well, that's
You don't
true.
have to
That's
be
true.
a softie to do that. You could be practical.
I guess yes. If you're comparing him to Tywin, he
Oh
looks
yeah.
like a softie.
Oh my god, yeah. He does. Absolute pushover.
But he also let his bannermen. He let his
Walk all
bannermen
over him
negotiate
to a
with
certain
him.
extent. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Negotiate
When
him with him through violence, basically.
right.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we also get a sense of the environment that Tywin inherited in the West when he rose to Lord of Casterly Rock. Possibly Lannisters weren't as feared as Tywin
Ah.
wanted them to be, possibly not as respected as Tywin wanted them
So
to
some
be.
of his actions are a reaction to that,
I think, yeah,
Yeah,
it
interesting.
feels that way. And so there's one line that Jaime thinks, and it's that Lady Tarbeck won a few more years for her mutton-headed husband. And so that goes to your question there.
Uh-huh.
A
The
few
few
more
more years
years
that Titus
yeah.
Lannister had to live, I guess, is how many it was.
Right.
Yeah.
We've heard bits and pieces of the Rain Tarbeck revolution, and you
Ah.
see this is half of that. And we
Ah.
certainly, from what we've heard, get the sense that it didn't go well. And I will also add that the reason that Lord Walderin Tarbeck, who is the Lord Tarbeck in question here, was imprisoned to begin with, was Tywin demanding that he repay loans that his wife took from Lord Titus. So Tywin was entangled in this from the very
Yeah.
beginning here.
Plus, that's on brand as well,
Yes.
willing to wipe out a family for a debt. Yeah.
Yes.
I can see
And
that.
he mentions about how Stafford went on to have kids and live his life until Oxcross, and he is the brother of Joanna Lannister, who is Tywin's wife, Jaime's mother, but also Tywin's cousin. So
Right.
Stafford was also his cousin.
Yeah.
And yes, the last we saw him, he was leading the Lannister army into battle against Robb Stark, and he was killed in the Battle of Oxcross.
Right. So Jamie's dream that takes him back, uh, it it has a sort of it has family members. It also has Kingsguard members, and they all seem to be judging him harshly. And in
Right.
particular, it seems to be around it to, around the killing of Aerys. That I mean, obviously, that's Jamie's great sin in this world is that he broke his oath and killed the king.
Yeah.
Uh,
Although a second sin comes up that he hasn't really thought much about him uh, allowing Rhaegar's wife and children to be killed. And, he spends so
yes,
much time thinking about the Kingslayer aspect that that's something that really hasn't gotten much light, is that he was
right.
supposed to be guarding them as well.
Yeah,
So
that's a good
clearly he
point.
must have some unresolved guilt over all that transpired. And, possibly because it was his father's men who killed them.
Yes, and
That
I was going to say the same thing. That's going to exacerbate it. That it
right,
wasn't just. It doesn't from an outside perspective. It doesn't look just like negligence. It also looks like he might have been complicit because it was his own family who did the murder.
right. Yeah, so
Mm.
he probably has some additional guilt dealing with that. But so as the dream goes, Cersei and Tywin and apparently all of the Lannister ancestors kind of bail on Jaime. They say, "This is your doom," and they turn and leave. Tywin leaves him a sword that's glowing, and then Brienne shows up, and she stays. She also has a glowing sword. And so I was thinking maybe we take from that part of the dream that Brienne stayed and protected him and fought with him when
Yeah.
Cersei and Tywin left him there alone. And also I wondered about the Jaime and Brienne having kind of twin swords, and was kind of thinking about them and the two Valyrian steel swords that
Mm.
Tywin had made, and wondering if there's
Hmm.
any correlation there, or
Yeah.
just random coincidence.
And also, I mean, there's also this sort of like going forward. Jaime's about to arrive in King's Landing, where he's going to see Tywin and Cersei, and potentially get be on their in their bad books. I would imagine he's probably afraid of that. Um, Having Brienne there at his right hand, which he now looks like he will. Well, I shouldn't have mentioned his right hand. That was unfortunate. Um, he
Unfortunate choice of words.
as his right hand, um, could be very handy for him to have like a
Oh boy,
protector
there
and
you go
someone who's
again.
on his side.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
said
missed
there.
what you said then.
You said. I said there you go again. You said he could be potentially handy for him. Here.
Too funny. I didn't even see it.
No, yeah, I get where you're coming from, though. All joking aside,
Hmm.
and so 5 Kingsguard and Rhaegar show up on horseback, and he thinks to himself, the 5 were his brothers before, and the one that's missing, because there's 7 Kingsguard, the one that's missing from Aerys Kingsguard at the time of Jaime's induction was Barristan Selmy.
Who was injured.
Right, at the Trident. Yeah, so
Yes.
he survived the he survived through the Robert's Rebellion.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, Jamie goes back for Brienne. I mean, I think we can sort of see why he's become fond of her. He's grown a loyalty to her. She's become his confidant. He's shared things with her he doesn't share with other people.
They dug
In
coal
his
together,
dreams,
as I say.
say again?
They dug coal together.
Right, they dug
Yes.
coal together, exactly. Um, and in his dreams, she's his protector against everyone, including everyone he's ever known and everyone and his family. She's the
Right.
one who sticks by him.
Yeah.
So it's not hard to see why he would want to protect her. Plus, he feels guilt about the fact that his cover story for her is now leading her to a worse outcome.
That's true. He didn't know that when he left Harrenhal.
Left.
He found
Yeah.
that on
Yeah.
the road.
He
Um,
hoped, sort of like naively hoped, that she would be ransomed and get out of there in one piece. But given
yes,
what
right.
Vargo Hoat had done to him, that was always a little bit naive, I feel.
That's a little shaky, right?
Yeah.
That hope. Yeah. So she also, they both have these glowing swords, and Cersei tells Jaime, "You'll stay alive as long as that sword stays glowing. When it goes out, your time is up." And the sword goes out, and he starts shouting no, and he sees that Brienne's sword is still glowing. And I wondered if that burning sword might possibly have been her innocence. Maybe,
Oh.
she returned to save him in her noble innocence, and now he's going to go save her and save her innocence. I don't know. I was trying to think of why this sword situation, why hers stayed lit and his blew out.
I wondered if it was just a extension of his hand. Once his hand went out, once he lost his hand, he needed
Oh,
her to protect
yeah.
him.
Yeah, that could
Simple
be.
as that.
That could be that too. So this is the same guy who pushed Bran out of a window, who just returned to save Brienne. He offers to pay Brienne's ransom. He jumps into the bear pit to protect her
With one hand.
with one hand. And again, we see when he has a connection to someone, he seems to be very loyal to them.
Yeah, we've mentioned that before that
Yeah,
he is.
Cersei and Tyrion being the
Yeah, yeah.
primary.
I got to imagine though, if that first night on the road with Qyburn, Cersei had been there, they probably wouldn't have turned back. And that's the problem, you see. Cersei is the evil spirit on his shoulder.
Right. That is true. He's been away from her for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know that old saying, you are who your friends are. People you hang around with, you're influenced.
God, help me.
So Jaime has this one line when he is trying to convince Steelshanks to cooperate and go back to Harrenhal with him. At first, he threatens him and says, if you don't do it, I'm going to tell my father that you're the one that cut my hand off.
Right.
And, and then he says, but if you do cooperate, I'll sing the sweetest song. And Jaime says, you'll get the girl and the gold.
Can I interject with my take on that? When I read that, I didn't think there was anything to it. I thought he meant, we'll get the girl out of there and you'll get the gold reward for doing it. But if there's something more interesting, theorize.
You're right. He could be referring to picking up Sansa as the girl and bringing her back like Brienne is supposed to be doing. But I don't think he's expecting to return Sansa because Sansa's married to Tyrion now. So I don't know if Jaime is necessarily expecting to make good on the promise of trading himself for the Stark girls. So I wondered if it had something to do with Arya, because you remember at the dinner, Brienne asked Roose, do you know anything about Arya? And he said, yeah, she was lost, but now she's been found, and I have every intention of making sure she gets back to the north. And I wonder if Jaime thinks that Arya might be there, or there's some plan involving returning Arya. Of course, they don't know where Arya is, but Jaime doesn't know that they don't know where Arya is.
Yes, I understand. Yes. Yeah. But you know what?
It was very vague.
That is one more straw on the camel's back that is Roose Bolton's allegiance to me. Because I'm like, what does he mean by that? Why does he think that? Who's he talking to get that information?
Right, yeah, unless he's getting bad information from someone, which is possible, I guess.
But who? Who is he getting bad information from? I mean, like,
yeah.
It feels like the only people who would have any kind of conversation with someone about Arya Stark are the Lannisters, who are desperate to find her and get her back in their clutches.
Right.
And that makes me think Tywin, Roose Bolton is talking to the Lannisters, and I don't like that. I don't like that one bit.
It could be. Remember, Jaime at that dinner wondered if they were having some sort of negotiation type conversation, and he wondered if Brienne was picking it up. So it's certainly possible. But we also had thought about, was there a Roose Bolton spy in the Brotherhood Without Banners that was aware that they had found Arya Stark?
Right.
That could be as well.
Yeah.
And maybe he sent the Hound to rescue her.
I've said that before. Which would then bring the Hound towards Harrenhal, where the goat sits alone and fevered.
Right. There you go.
All right.
One thing, so he rescues her. He rescues Brienne out of the bear pit. And one thing I'll point out there is that he jumps in, and he's the whole time they're in the bear pit, he is getting Brienne behind him and kind of shielding Brienne and then distracting the bear from Brienne. And he doesn't explain until he gets out of the bear pit what his thinking was. What his thought was is that Stillshanks Walton and the Northmen cannot let Jaime get killed.
Right.
So he was baiting him, using himself as bait and making them have to kill the bear for them.
Yeah.
So that's what was going on there. If you're wondering, why in the world was he jumping in front of Brienne with his one hand and no weapon?
Right.
It was that plan.
The background. What do you have for us, sir?
Well, today's background is going to be kind of rehashed background, because all the good background stuff were things we already discussed, but some of them were a long time ago. So I'm going to do a refresher background here. So,
with apologies to all bingers.
Yes, exactly. If you're binging this, you might have heard it pretty recently. But Jaime thinks that the voice that he hears in the pit in the bottom of Casterly Rock was all the Lannisters since Lan the Clever, who was from the Age of Heroes. And so I did this back in chapter 27 of A Game of Thrones, which was Ned 6. And the story of Lan the Clever is basically the origin story of House Lannister. Way back in the Age of Heroes, the dominant family in the West were the Casterlys. And Lan tricked them out of Casterly Rock somehow. It's a little vague exactly how he did it. And he lived there in Casterly Rock for a long life, siring many children. He is also believed that he stole from the sun to give them all their golden hair. And like I said, the stories of how he stole Casterly Rock from the Casterlys are varied. Some think he smuggled a pride of lions in to eat all the Casterlys. Some say that he used mice and rats to drive them all out. And others say he snuck in and convinced them it was haunted until they fled. So that was clever Lan, the origin of House Lannister. Now, the other thing that came up in this chapter was Jaime wore an old battered shield from the armory that was of House Lothston. Lothston, blah, blah. That was of House Lothston.
They have sapphires?
They might have. Their sigil did not have sapphires. It was a black bat on silver and gold, which Jaime
By the way,
mentions.
I like the sound of that sigil. I did when I read
Yeah.
it. I was like, that'd be cool. A black bat on silver and gold. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
They were, we learned about them in chapter 47 of A Clash of Kings, Arya 9, which was probably just over a year ago. So bingers might be like, I just listened to this last week. Anyway, House Lothston earned the seat of Harrenhal in a rather unusual manner. The first Lothston, saying this name is not going to be easy for me. The first Lothston to be Lord of Harrenhal was Sir Lucas Lothston, who was the grandson of a hedge knight. And Sir Lucas rose to become master at arms of the Red Keep during the reign of King Aegon III. Meanwhile, the king's nephew, Prince Aegon, the future Aegon IV, was found in bed with Felaena Stokeworth. The prince's father, Prince Viserys, arranged for Felaena to marry Sir Lucas, and King Aegon III then set Lucas up as Lord Lucas of Harrenhal, which removed him and his wife from court, and his wife from Prince Aegon's bed.
Everyone inherits Harrenhal in a weird way. I mean, that's
I know.
completely
It is.
standard for how you get hold of Harrenhal.
That's how you do it. Now, fast forward 20 years, Prince Aegon is now King Aegon IV. He calls the Lothstons back to King's Landing. He makes Lucas his hand of the king and takes Jane Lothston, the 14-year-old daughter of Lucas and Felaena, as one of his many mistresses.
Very interesting. Comparison with the television show. This was all better captured than I remembered. Jaime has a one-on-one with Brienne before he leaves, in which he tries to reassure her. She is not really reassured. Her fate is in the hands of Bolton's man Locke, who, if you remember, took the Hoat role. It was the whole Brave Companions were dropped. Instead, it was Bolton's man Locke who cut Jaime's hand off and kept Brienne. She absolves Jaime of blame if he will fulfill his side of the deal and set the Stark girls free. He'll owe Brienne nothing. He totally agrees to that. He leaves with Qyburn and Steelshanks Walton and a few extras, definitely not 200. He turns back, not after a night's sleep, he turns back the same day, so there's no dream. After Qyburn reveals that Locke has received and refused an offer of 300 dragons for Brienne. The bear is spared. For once, the body count was less in the TV show than the book. The bear wasn't killed. That's partly because Steelshanks Walton's group is so small compared to Locke's group, which is much larger. So that disparity at the bear pit was the other way round here. Walton puts one crossbow bolt into the side of the bear, and then they fish them out in a hurry. Which, given Jaime's one-handedness, is quite a feat to get him out of there as quickly as they do.
I agree.
Yeah. But the other thing about that disparity is they are all on the same side. They're all Bolton men.
Right.
So it's the sort of like standoff between the two groups is kind of weird. You know, there's only Bolton sigils flying. So the whole thing's a bit strange. They leave Locke with some harsh words. Just to mention that Qyburn was played by Anton Lesser, who's a British actor who was
Uh-huh.
excellent as Qyburn. Very, very good.
Yeah, I
Doesn't
agree.
look like the Qyburn as described in the book, but he does a really good job of it. He has that
He
sort of
does.
like just that sinisterness that you really
He
wanted
does
for
have a
Qyburn.
sinisterness, yes.
Pedantry Corner. I didn't find anything pedantry wise in the book, but I will mention the TV show Pedantry. Bolton leaving Locke to brutalize Brienne is a different level of culpability than leaving Brienne with Vargo Hoat.
Right.
Locke is his man. You can't do
Uh-huh.
that and wash
Right.
your hands of it. You know, you can wash your hands of it because Brienne was Hoat's prisoner, and
Right.
Bolton has no interest in her outcome, and therefore she's still Hoat's prisoner. But Locke is his man, and I just don't understand why you let that happen.
Yeah, he's a fellow Northman,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the TV show. That's not the book. The book was fine. News and notes.
Well, Bran Stark is coming to Con of Thrones fan convention. Isaac Hempstead Wright, who played Bran Stark on a Game of Thrones, has been added to the guest list. The other Game of Thrones alumni who is currently on the list is Miltos Eurolemo, or I hope I didn't just slaughter that last name, but he is played Syrio Forel on a Game of Thrones, and this man Miltos, I'm gonna spare pronouncing that last name since I'm sure I did a terrible job of it. Uh, this man is known to give water dancing lessons to those in attendance, so that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Con of Thrones will be held on August 25th through the 27th at the Hyatt Regency in Orlando, Florida.
Great.
Maybe we should go.
We should. I was thinking about that when you said it. That's
Yeah,
it's not too far away. Well, I mean, it's not that close, but we could make that happen
right.
if we tried.
It's possible. Yeah, let's discuss.
We will discuss. Um, we just want to welcome a new Buy Me a Coffee Lord Paramount, Case Stuffs. Welcome to the club. We look forward to meeting you at the next video chat.
That's right. Welcome aboard. We've talked a bit on the Discord server.
Oh, you
Seems
have
like
good. I'm glad you're always taking care of those
you
things.
have to on the chess channel.
Oh, oh, cool. Yeah, I'll play you at chess. That'll be fun. And v very soon, next episode, in fact, we may have a very major surprise coming. We'll see.
Yes.
We'll keep that. We won't reveal what it is, but the next episode will be
Right.
worth listening to.
It will. You'll. Yeah. I really. There's nothing more I can really
Yeah,
say
yeah.
without any kind of spoiler, and
Mhm.
we're against spoilers on
Yeah,
this
we are
show.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, yeah. Give us.
and we
We got a
also
review. Did we get a review?
we did. We got a review on Apple Podcasts UK from AIDY J877.
ADJ.
Addy J.
ADJ 877. ADJ.
ADJ877. And it goes like this. The subject is new favorite. So it's starting off strong
And
already.
spelled correctly too.
It has the U in it. that Google Docs wants us to take out. And then it goes like this. Great show for a good in-depth breakdown, especially if you're rereading the books. Love the extra historical background info, thank you, on lesser characters and houses, so keep that up, will do. Except for that it's getting incredibly hard to find stuff that I haven't already told you about. Would love a bit more comparison with the TV show and more opinions on casting and set
I
designs.
don't know if you noticed, but I actually expanded the comparison with the TV show a little bit today per ADJ's request, and I even mentioned
And
a cast member, if you noticed.
you did, that's
Uh-huh.
what I was going to say, yes.
I pay attention. I give the punters what they're looking for. Set
Well,
design, not a specialty of the house. I'll try to work on that. The bear pit was kind of nice.
it was a nice bear pit.
It was a nice bear
Okay,
pit, yeah.
okay.
Although, actually, I will say, while we're talking about the set design of the bear pit, I did wonder how the bear was taken in and out of said bear pit. Because it was kind of like
Oh,
it was in a courtyard of a castle, obviously Harrenhal, massive, and it was a wooden
right.
structure with kind of high walls so the bear couldn't reach the people on top. It looked a bit like uh don't interrupt. I'm thinking.
I don't know what you're going to say, so I can't.
What's the stupid sport called in Harry Potter?
Oh, Quidditch.
Yes, it looks a bit like a Quidditch stadium,
Oh, okay.
right? Sort of
Okay.
oval-shaped wooden structure, kind of sharply high walls. The fans
Uh
were
huh.
on the top ring, looking down inside. But the thing was, I couldn't see a sort of like an adjunct part where you would keep the bear,
Where the bear would
where the bear
live.
would
Right.
live. Now, the bear could live in the middle, I suppose, but it would get exposed to the elements. I mean, you would think you would give it a bit
Right.
of a. So there you are, a bit of a problem with that set design, I thought.
Uh huh. Set design commentary
And
by
actually, it was
Simon.
kind of nice that the bear wasn't killed in the TV show. I mean, just for the bear's sake, generally, but also Locke said, "Don't kill the bear. He's expensive." So
Oh,
they there was a specific request, and again, because they were from the same group, Walton didn't want to
right.
kill the bear, so Jaime and Brienne
Yeah.
were almost killed instead.
Okay.
Sorry,
There
back
you go.
back on that. So let's conclude. Um,
Yes.
So Jaime saved Brienne. Hooray, hooray, hooray. And his arc continues in the positive direction, I think. I mean, again, his first moment in the Song of Ice and Fire was when he was having sex with his sister and pushed a child out of a window. The
Right.
only way was up,
So,
apart from for Bran, obviously. Um,
yes.
did you
So,
did you miss my joke there?
oh, so I was thinking, what was your Mr. Joke? Yes.
I
I was
s-
thinking about your
yeah,
words.
I said I said so. From that point, the only way was up, except for Bran, I suppose.
Oh, goodness. Oh, maybe I should have missed your joke. Oh, boy. Yes, it is. And even fast forwarding 2 books from that, it's just a major departure from earlier Jaime chapters in this book. Those earlier chapters, he was actively plotting to kill Brienne, and he was very liberal with his cruel japes at her
Yeah.
expense. And he comes to rescue her here, and it's easy to see him as a hero here in this chapter, but we've had discussions on the Discord channel a few times about do his noble heroic actions here, the Sapphire story, alerting Hoat to the impending rape that some of his brave companions were preparing to do, saving her from the bear pit, do they override those terrible actions like pushing Bran out of the window and ambushing Ned and injuring Ned and killing his men?
I mean,
It's
yeah, we can never truly forgive what he did to Bran, but
right,
you can only live your life from this point forward. And if you
right,
live your life
right.
from this point forward in a good way, then you're someone worth having around.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That's a good way to look at
yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah. You can't forget what he did,
no,
and you can't necessarily forgive what he did, but he can do his best to try and atone for
you can judge
misdeeds
him on the
with good
present.
deeds.
Even if you don't forgive and
Right,
forget, you can still judge him on what he's doing now, and what he's doing now is definitely better. Brienne
right.
owes him a serious favor, clearly.
Yeah, she was probably not going to survive that.
No, I don't think so.
So,
Because she
yeah,
wasn't she
yeah.
wasn't the ransom for her wasn't enough to keep her alive. They would rather have fun with her, it seemed.
Yes. I mean, they gave her a tourney sword
Yeah,
and put her in a dress.
yeah,
It was clearly, and it, I was thinking while it was happening, apparently Vargo Hoat has given up on trying to ransom Brienne. Apparently, he'd rather have nothing, just these jokes while she
yeah,
gets killed than 300 gold dragons,
yeah.
because
I
clearly she wasn't going to get ransomed if she's dead.
Yes, I guess if you're careful, if you're ensconced in Harrenhal, known to be the safest place in the Seven Kingdoms, everyone lives to a ripe old age. Then
Right.
who needs
Nothing goes
300 gold
wrong there.
dragons when you could have
Right.
some more enemies? Um, Tyburn, bit of a freak and definitely a pervert. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but quite a good maester, it seems. I mean,
He
he's
does seem to
yeah,
be. Yes. Yes. He's, but yes, he seems to be complicit with what the Brave Companions are about.
yeah. And Vargo Hoat is most certainly a monster and callous. And if he is smart, as you maintain, it's not really revealing itself unless he's got
Right.
some master plan to get out of here. But he just feels like he's building himself his own coffin constantly.
Maybe he's so smart we can't
Right.
see the calculus of
Yes.
what he's
Yeah.
planning here.
Yeah. And then Steel Shanks Walton. I mean, you said that he's not a new character, but I mean, I don't remember. It looks like he's a good ally for this journey, sort of like steady and forthright.
He seems both dependable
Yeah.
and willing to do what he's asked to do.
Right.
And smart enough, to be able to think through situations if he's not been
The return
instructed.
to Harrenhal made sense once it was laid out to him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But what is Roose Bolton up to? His betrayal of Robb is obvious, but he also betrayed decency when he fed Brienne to Hoat.
Right.
He seems to be trying to curry favor with Tywin, but unless he either expects Robb to lose the war or is planning to switch sides, he shouldn't need Tywin's favor. Those are the only two instances where you would need Tywin's favor: if your side loses or you're planning to switch sides.
Yes. Right. And he's on, as we were discussing earlier, he's on his way to the Twins to meet up with Robb for the wedding. What's he gonna say about Jaime if he's asked?
Yeah.
And I wonder if he'll give the regards that he said he would.
Right.
Yeah. Because that would out him automatically. Oh, Jaime Lannister.
Never mind.
Never mind.
The guy who
You're
looked a bit
busy.
like
We'll
Jaime
talk
Lannister
later.
with only one hand, he sent his regards. And the ghost of High Heart, the prophetic dream did come true. The goat is sitting alone in the big castle, so other parts of her predictions might come true. That didn't sound good for Balon Greyjoy.
No, it sure doesn't, does it? She saw him dead.
Yes.
He wasn't sitting alone with a fever. He was dead. So yes, we'll have to see how many more of her dreams pan out.
Yes. So next week will be episode 189, and it will be a first.
It will.
It will be a first.
And it will be a cat chapter.
A cat chapter, and something that's never happened before will happen in that chapter. Well, no, in that episode.
In that episode, The chapters. It's a pretty good chapter. Robb names an heir, which is a big deal, and Robb comes up with a plan for getting himself around through and around Moat Cailin, which is currently held by the Ironborn.
I'm only halfway through it, so I haven't got to that part yet. Exciting.
Yes, lots of cool stuff.
All right.
So you want to check out... There's lots of reasons why you want to tune in next week.
Sure. All right. There's 3 things that you could do to help us. You could leave us a positive review. That spreads the word. You could buy merchandise at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. You could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. Consider becoming a sustainer at the Knight of the Realm or Lord Paramat's level, and that really helps us, and you get some cool perks from it, including chess against me.
Oh, right. And, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com. And, you can go out and follow us on Twitter at @GhostHarrenhal. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.